This is London Tonight with Nina Hussain.
Good evening. We knew fare hikes were coming, but today we found out exactly how much they'll be. Above inflation rises on the tubes and the buses. From January, journeys will cost an extra 4%, but on Boris bikes, a 100% rise. Higher charges will be doubled from £1 to £2 a day, yearly membership going up from £45 to £90. So, how has the Mayor justified that hike? And why is he tonight being accused of choosing to bury bad news on the back of Obama's victory? Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Whether you travel by tube, train or tram, bus or even Boris bike, there's no escape. For the 5th year running, Boris Johnson has landed Londoners with an inflation-busting ticket to ride. Fares will go up by an average of 4.2% from January the 2nd. The fares increase is not as big as it might have been thanks to a £96 million handout from the government. But it's still 1% above inflation, and there's a big rise in the cost of Boris bikes. On the buses, an Oyster pay-as-you-go single fare will rise from £1.35 to £1.40. On the tube, an Oyster pay-as-you-go single fare in zones 1 and 2 increases from £2.70 to £2.80. A weekly travel card for zones 1 to 4 will jump from £41.80 to £43.60.
I will cut them in October by 7% across the board.
Earlier this year, Labour's candidate for mayor, Ken Livingstone, claimed there was enough money to cut fares. He lost the argument and the election.
When I promised that fare cut 7%, the TfL surplus was £350 million. In the first 3 months of this financial year, it's gone up to £431 million. Boris Johnson could cut the fares by 11% in January and still have a surplus.
Transport for London says there is no surplus. It's all earmarked for investment, and according to the Mayor, these new increases are unavoidable.
I know and I understand how people will feel. The difficulty really is that we have to keep the flow of investment going to stuff like the Northern Line upgrade, getting in the improvements to the subsurface lines, all this big stuff that London needs and is vital for the city.
For the first time, bike hire customers will be hit. The daily access charge doubles from £1 to £2, the annual fee from £45 to £90.
What you might think about doing is what I've done in the past, which is actually own a relatively cheap bike that you don't particularly care about, because you can leave them around locked up and they probably won't get stolen. One of the reasons why I cycle a Boris bike is actually because my own bike's rather good and I don't want to leave it on the street.
According to TfL, increased cycle hire charges will allow the scheme to be expanded into the boroughs. In return, cyclists will get improved safety measures at 500 roundabouts and a promise of a new east-west cycle superhighway. Simon Harris, London Tonight, City Hall.
Let's get some reaction now from Joe Williams from Sustrans, a UK charity promoting using public transport. Thank you for coming in. We knew, as we heard in that report, that the bus and the tube fares were going to go up. What's your reaction? Were you surprised by the Boris bike rises today?
Well, we know that thousands of Londoners, unfortunately, are living in transport poverty as things stand. They're cut off from shops, from healthcare, from jobs and amenities. So we're concerned that any kind of increases in the price people have to pay to get around.
But what about the bikes? 100% rise.
It does seem quite a lot compared to the other rises, certainly. I mean, I think it's worth bearing in mind that the hire bikes themselves are popular amongst a very specific group of Londoners. We're concerned to make sure that everybody can get around via cheaper means. So that means helping out public transport. It also means ensuring there are safer routes for cyclists to get around London too. So for all those people who've got a bike in their garden sheds, getting them out and being able to cycle with confidence.
The problem is everybody had an opportunity to vote. They could have voted for fare cuts by voting in Ken. They voted for Boris. These tube and bus fare rises, which, as you say, will affect millions more people and many more people who are really struggling, they knew they were getting them.
Well, there may be some truth to that, yes, of course. I suppose everybody is going to be in favour of cheapest transport as possible. And we hope that going forward we can make sure that that money is invested in public transport, making sure that in the long term we can make sure people can get around cheaply and safely too.
The Mayor says on the cycles that the money is needed to bring them into line with other public transport, and if you don't invest in the tube by putting prices up, the network will just not be sustainable. Do you accept that it needs money for the future?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, transport costs money to run, and that needs to be in a combination of taxes, I guess, money from the London Authority and also from fares as well, of course. But absolutely, it needs to be a broad package of transport measures. People need to be provided with real choices about how they get around. The cost of driving is so huge now, we can't rely on universal car ownership.
So if putting up fares isn't the answer, what is the answer to sustaining the network and providing affordable travel? Very briefly, if you could.
Absolutely, it's helping people walk and cycle more. This is effectively a free or close to being free to be able to get people around, so we need to provide safe routes for people to be able to do that. OK, Joe Williams, thank you for talking to me tonight. Thank you. And to see what the fares will mean for you and your journey from January, do head online. There's more details about the price increases on our website. Just go to itv.com/London to see how much your commute will cost you in the new year. Two teenagers